beginners that are just building their programs, what mistakes do beginners consistently make?
Three most important things for getting any kind of gift are: does my gift make a difference? The second is it easy to give? Third most important question, is it urgent? So in your monthly giving request, if you can give a sense of urgency, then that is great for every program.
I think that's really powerful. Is it easy? Is it making a difference? And what's the sense of urgency? Harvey McKinnon, welcome to the Sustainable Giving Podcast.
Thank you.
I am grateful you are here. You and I have only lightly really gotten to know each other. We recently were on a panel that Tim Sarantonio, I think, referred to as the Avengers of recurring giving.
Or like the X-Men, I think.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say we could go deep cut. Not the like, misfits or whatever. I'm trying to think of like what are other groupings, but if Avengers, X-Men, I'll take it. But no, you have been really foundational in the broader world of philanthropy and fundraising here in North America. But fun fact, Harvey, you don't know this, but when it was about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was really seeing what was happening in the subscription space and how it seemed to be starting to transform the way certain people thought about generosity and giving, I was like, man, somebody's got to write a book on this. So I went and looked at the canon of literature on recurring giving, and a certain bright yellow book came across my Google feed, which this is your book, the How to Create Lifelong Donors Through Monthly Giving. So we're going to talk about this today, but thank you for writing this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was.
I thought you were going to go back because I did the first book on monthly giving in 1989.
I didn't find that one. Is that still in print?
No. The publisher went out of business, unfortunately.
Oh, that can be the problem.
It's still available, so it's way larger than that book.
This book was much more like pithy, a couple page chapters. So highly recommend it. We're gonna talk about that. But for people who may not know you, what's a story that captures the way one way you found yourself into this work?
Into the work as monthly giving or into the work as fundraising?
Choose your own adventure.
Okay. Well, probably fundraising, because that led to monthly giving being an adventure. I was a student at university, knew nothing about anything, as many 22-year-olds are there in that bucket. But I ended up getting sucked into going to see two guys from Southern Africa speak. And there was only the two guys from Southern Africa, the friend who dragged me there, and 3 other people. And I learned about apartheid in South Africa and Namibia, then called Southwest Africa. And I thought, this is just awful. I have to do something about it. And which is kind of crazy because I knew next to nothing about it, but I was just highly motivated by the injustice of it. So at the time, I was incredibly shy, introverted. I could not speak in front of 4 or 5 people without blushing, stuttering. But I decided to bring a film on South Africa to the university, had 100 people there, and I just kind of talked into the mic like this. And then it became easier and easier, and I set up an anti-apartheid group on campus. Ended up meeting the people at Oxfam, the International Development Agency, who were working on the same issue and volunteering for them. So they, like every other nonprofit, needs fundraising, and I was, working on the student newspaper, had different kinds of skills, and then ended up raising them a lot of money as a volunteer. And this is in 1976, and they had a thriving monthly giving program, which was pretty rare in Canada or anywhere in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. And so this, as you know, better than most people, that when people give you $20 a month, that adds up to $240 a year, and over a decade, it's $2,400 if they have an upgrade. So it can be a lot of money when you first recruit people, and that was pretty attractive. And that's because I was a volunteer at Oxfam, probably 10, 15 hours a week. Was on their national board when I was 23. I was heavily emotionally invested in making them more money to do the work they were doing, and ended up getting hired a couple of years later. And then monthly giving was the kind of secret to dramatically increasing the income for Oxfam. So I was doing this in the late 70s before you were born.
You have correctly surmised. But no, so so what then ultimately, tell me a little bit about your journey then from there to then writing the first book on recurring giving. What led you to that place, to writing that?
Well, one of the things we discovered is with our Oxfam donors, especially if we had emergency campaigns, we could convert a lot of them really quickly to monthly giving status. So with many emergency campaigns, most of the donors fall away. We instantly, while they were still highly emotionally charged by, say, the Ethiopia crisis
Mm-hmm.
or the revolution in Nicaragua where Somoza was bombing his own citizens, we set up a medical aid to Nicaragua, that if people made a gift and you went back to them really quickly and said, would you make this gift monthly? Huge percentage of them did this. And Ethiopia, our line was, Ethiopia needs long-term development. There's a massive famine in 1984, and we went from 2 million to 15 million in 6 weeks income pre-internet. This is people just dropping into the office, calling in, dropping off checks like constantly. And so it was a pretty phenomenal time. And then we sent out thank you letters to every one of them with a form that was filled out, their name, address, etc. And a staggeringly large number of people instantly became monthly donors, many of whom are still giving to Oxfam today.
Mm.
So we just saw this is so much easier to get people to on these programs. And we did a lot of data analysis. And the average person who became a monthly donor gave 2 to 3 times more per year compared to single gift donors, and they also stayed on average about 3 times longer. So 6 years as opposed to 2. But again, many of them stay on forever. We also found that they dramatically increase their gifts, the 10-20% of them every year, upgrade at a significant level. So even if a program we found over the years is static, you're like 1,000 people drop off, you add 1,000. But because of
Right.
upgrading, the income keeps going up by 10-20% a year.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that multiplying both the in-year value being two or three times and the fact that they stay two or three times longer.
yeah, it
Okay.
really, I'm estimating 7 to 20 times in some programs that we looked at. So I felt like because I started training and fundraising, became less shy, not shy at all anymore, and started teaching fundraising in the early 80s because nobody else was doing this at all. And so I've always liked passing on ideas, which is why I write books. And but every group that I talked to, almost none of them had monthly giving programs. So it was an obvious thing to talk about it. This is how you increase donor value dramatically. And then I thought I've accumulated lots of stories. I know people around the world. I was speaking at international conferences, national conferences on this. I thought I should write a book. I'm clearly, as you see from my background, I'm a book guy and read 100 books a year and kind of obsessed by books. So I think they're really important. If somebody spends 2 or 3 years condensing information on a certain area and you can read in 4 or 5 hours, it's a great gift. So your book, there's so many great books that I've learned so much from. So I
Yeah.
thought I would do one.
Well, and that last thing you just said about, the thing at least you hopefully do in the age of AI writing books. We'll put that aside for a second. The thing is if an author took, in your case, you were building on decades, of experience eventually, that they took the time to actually put that thinking to paper. I remember when I first started writing The Rise of Sustainable Giving, I thought, I've been talking about this for 5 years. Like, I'm just going to write down the words that I said. Turns out, Harvey, a little harder than that.
But
Um,
in the process, as I'm sure you found, is that when you are writing a book or a significant piece of work, that you learn what you don't know and then spend time learning
yep.
more. And the process of synthesizing and making it something that people can easily understand and find useful makes you way better at understanding it and employing it.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right. I just was listening to an interview with a very accomplished author, and he said my favorite part of writing a book is when it's done and I learn all of the things. And I was like, "Are you being sarcastic?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Because now he's known for that topic." And I don't know about you. I got a text from a friend today that said, "Hey, did you see this thing that this nonprofit's doing?" And I'm like, "No, but thank you. Like, I'm glad I'm top of mind to send this." So it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
When you look back, was there a moment or was there a season that you realized that monthly giving wasn't just a tactic, but foundational to sustainable philanthropy?
Pretty early on, probably in like 1979, where we just looked at the numbers. And so when people join these programs, I mean, there's a story I tell at the beginning of this book. Maybe I can tell this now, which was I was late at night writing a letter for Oxfam, 8 o'clock at night. The light was on in my office. It was facing a Greek restaurant across the street. I got a call. The phone rings at 8 o'clock at night, and it turns out I had three friends who were journalists for the one national paper, two local papers back when there were newspapers. And they invited me over to the restaurant because they did not have enough money for tips or coffee. And they didn't call me to go have a meal with them, I noticed after the fact. But I decided to go over and pay for the, and this is pretty much pre credit cards, clearly. And I ended up filling out 3 monthly giving forms for Oxfam with their names. And then all I had to do is that this is $1979, check off a box, 15, 25, or $40. So we weren't,
Okay.
now that's,
Yeah.
in today's dollars, at the 40 would easily be 100, 120. So one of them signed up for 15, another for 25, and the third one for 40. Could be the Retsina, I don't know. But all of a sudden, Oxfam was getting 80 a month, $960 a year. The two of the people are still on the program. One of them was on for 8 years and went off to a sabbatical in France. Has subsequently, I know, given gift stocks. I don't think he's on the program again. But the $15 person is now giving $40 a month. So again, over time, that's been $20,000 so far. And almost certainly they're not going to ever drop off a program because two of them are still on the program. And that's been 46 years
Yeah.
or thereabouts.
That's incredible.
So, so I thought, this is really great. So you ask somebody for a small amount of money and then they just give forever.
Yeah. I'm curious. One of the things that well, actually, we'll come to that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences in recurring giving between UK, Canada, Europe, and the US as well. We'll come to that. One of the things that you talk about in the book, and the one that I came across, like you said, was much more of a primer and like useful tactics to grow monthly giving. Um, one of the promises that you talk about is really that practically any organization can attract monthly donors. So why do so many leaders still believe that they're the exception?
Well, if you look at the average charity, it tends to be led by somebody who's not a fundraiser. Gross generalization. And people who are fundraisers kind of get these things, and sometimes you have to beat against the ceiling or the wall, or sometimes using your head to convince people in authority to do the right things, which would be invest in things like this or invest in legacy giving, because it's not an immediate payoff like going out and ask somebody for $50,000. So that's, I think, one of the problems. The people running a lot of nonprofits tend to think about the quarter or the year and not the long term. So that is a fundamental problem in the sector. People who get beyond this say, this is great. There was a large British charity where the person running it, it was the National Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children, where the CEO was running some big hedge fund or investment fund. And when he discovered how much you could make back on investing in monthly giving, he said, "This is way better return than any investment advisor I've ever had." So they sunk millions of pounds into recruiting monthly donors and saw their income dip for 2 years till it started breaking it even, and then the income just soared. So, like all good things, you don't expect, even if if you're talking to major donors. You don't just get hired as a major gift donor, call somebody, and they give you a lot of money usually. It's a process of developing trust, relationships, finding out what they want, etc. But there's an expectation for a lot of fundraisers that you have to make money right away. And virtually all recruitment for monthly donors, unless you're going to your file, is going to cost you money to figure where is your break even point, what are the long term risks, and then are we going to net a lot of money? So, but I've been like, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of organizations directly. And the number of people who really get investment is 10, 15%.
Yeah.
So I think that's the great impediment.
Yeah. When you one of the things you talk about is just this confidence that, a 10% immediate improvement in conversion from existing donors. Where does that confidence come from? Like, what have you seen in that?
Do you mean that I believe that 10% of the people on a file will convert to monthly giving? Or
The piece that I had was this idea of a 10% immediate conversion from existing donors. So I think that's related to that comment.
Well, we've worked with a lot of organizations in Canada and the States, some in Australia. And even if you convert 1% a year of your donors to monthly giving, at the end of a decade, you'll probably have 10% of them giving. So I'm not saying you're going to get 10% in 1 year. You can get 10% in 1 year. But you have to invest a lot of money and have lots of initiatives. But we don't have any clients that I can think of, even ones we've been working with for just a few years, that have less than 10%. And one of our largest clients who we work with for almost 20 years, they've got probably 65% of the donors who are now giving monthly, which is actually, I think, too high. It means they haven't invested enough money to recruit new individual donors who they can convert. But
yeah. Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about, because you have a unique perspective, having seen how recurring giving has evolved. So, when you started recurring giving, between when you started and today, recurring giving has really evolved. I'd be very interested in, what is the biggest change you've seen?
Well, the biggest change is when I was starting, the only two ways to get monthly donors were direct mail and person to person. That was essentially it. And person to person wasn't going door to door or setting up in a mall. So wisely, people have figured, okay, what are all the channels where we might have contact with individuals who could do this? And they've done a lot of testing and resources. So even telemarketing wasn't really going on back in 1976, 79. So there's been great advances in using every channel. Two of the bigger channels have been for cold recruiting, have been direct response television and the various offshoots of that. And then also canvassing, which would be, again, door to door or setting up in malls or standing outside a bookstore. So those have recruited awfully large numbers. And then, of course, you have to use all the channels like social media, emailing your donors, etc. So my feeling is you just use every channel possible, even if you don't have a high return. If there's low cost to do it, it gets the idea out there that this is normalized, that a lot of people do this. And so in social media posts, you might not get a great conversion, but you thank monthly donors, you talk about it, you show how easy it is, etc.
Yeah.
So again, it's like we just ran a Reddit campaign for Covenant House, which has been really great around recruiting new donors and monthly donors. And so it's just like, take any channel and figure out if you can make it work for you. Test.
I'm curious, from your perspective, does recurring giving today feel easier, harder, or just different?
Harder, I think. So it's not because people aren't wanting to do this, but in North America and probably many other parts of the world, there's what we could call precarity. A lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, nervous about their future, nervous about the jobs that they have because either AI can replace them or manufacturing jobs are being lost. So we've seen in every Western country kind of a squeezing of the middle class where most of them are ending up living paycheck to paycheck, or a lot of them, when they aren't succeeding, go paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of money is going into the hands of very well off people or the uber wealthy. And so a lot of the people on every given any given file will be the people in the middle who are going to give their $20 a month. But when they're feeling squeezed and now they're on Netflix and all these subscription things, think, okay, what can I kind of cut to because I don't have enough money to feed the family kind of thing. So I think it's harder to get new donors for many organizations today, especially if they've maximized that on their donor file. The recruitment of cold prospect new donors has increasingly got more expensive. When we were one of our big clients was using DRTV for 7 years in a row, where it was like $80 to $90 to recruit a new monthly donor, and then it just went through the roof.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the good old days. So the cost to acquire way higher, and the population of people who I think are willing to keep adding extra groups to their portfolio of monthly recipients, it's tightening up somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much that parallels, today, what kind of parallels we can see between today and say 1976, right? Because I think of like even some of the things you were saying, like, hey, we have a disaster donor, but if we immediately invite them to recurring giving, I'm like, wait, that sounds like the advice I gave to the client last week. Like, couple 5 decades later, and we're, and a lot of those principles are the same. I'm curious, what's a misconception that nonprofits still carry that we should have retired, 20 or 50 years ago?
Related to monthly giving or anything?
Yeah.
Well, I think and I've heard this from CEOs, well, it's a small amount of money, so we don't want to worry about it. So we, like every agency that has a portfolio of things that we do, including direct mail. I was at a board meeting for our kids' hospital, and somebody said, well, this prospect mail program is losing money. We're spending like $30 to acquire every new donor. Let's just kill it and save the money. And the development director said, oh, last year we got a $50 gift from somebody, and this year they gave $1 million. So we find this happens all the time, that people who are business people frequently, and as a business person, I'm sympathetic to reading numbers and all that, but they don't understand fundraising or the process of investing money to make money, seemingly. And so they try and kill things like investment in monthly giving because, hey, you're not breaking even until 18 months out. We need to, feed these hungry kids or on this mental health program or whatever. Whereas if you look at it in a longer term perspective, you can literally raise millions for a decent sized organization by investing now. So that is, I think, the key thing, invest for the future. Same thing with, like, we do tons of legacy programs for all sorts of organizations and make millions, but you don't make millions within the first year because people don't instantly die and have their money go to the charity. So, but is it worth it? I think within 5-10 years, half of all the money for many organizations will come from gifts and wills.
Well, I heard two.
So those who invested.
Yep. I heard two things from you there. The it's a small amount, so, and it's costing us, so why not cut it? And then, and it's really interesting on that, by the way. I was just talking to a chairman of a board of a large nonprofit about this. And it's interesting. And I wonder if that's in some sectors shifting, because this person, we of course talked about subscriptions and how subscription oriented businesses have outperformed the general market by 4 times. And he's like, oh, you don't have to tell me. And he told me the story. I won't name the brand, of a very well-known national brand that we would all know, that he was at the front end of saying, like, guys, we got to move to a subscription model. So I wonder, it'll be interesting to see how that might impact some of those boardroom dynamics.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the other myth, and I think you appropriately called it out, is that it's this long-term investment. Like, it's it'll pay off in the future. But what you said just 10 minutes ago was the average recurring giver was giving 2 to 3 times that of their single gift counterparts, and so that's one of the other pieces. I think it's like legacy giving. It sounds like a far future thing, but where we can show people that it actually makes a difference today, including in legacy giving, by the way.
Right.
You've seen that research on, when they make a commitment, their present giving goes up. I think that helps with this kind of, I don't know what kind of human psychology thing we have going on where we're like, yeah, it's in the future. I'll worry about it later. It's
Right.
like,
I'm related to that. I'm not sure it's in this book or another book that I've done, but I was working for a PBS station in the States on a monthly giving program. And the biggest impediment I had was not the person hiring me said, we want to do this, but the person who was responsible for donors who gave I think it was at the time, $240 to $999, who didn't want to let me talk to her donors. Because how she was evaluated was how much money she raised in her portfolio. And she wasn't thinking about the best for the big PBS station because it was the second largest in the country.
right.
It was how this would affect her career and her job. So I have sympathy for that, even though I was kind of ticked off at the time. But that's a leadership problem. The leadership person who's responsible for the program should say, we want to get people out of this program into a program where they will get not only give more money, but they will give for many more years. And so often you find that people compete within organizations. So if you've got distinct groups, people in the digital or direct mail program don't want the monthly giving person pulling people out of there and giving monthly because then it looks like they're not doing as well. And again, it's all leaders need. The more people you get out of direct mail in a monthly giving or a digital in a monthly giving, you make more money and it's more stable. But so that is a big issue in a number of charities.
Yeah. Yeah. We've seen that for sure. Other than leadership, saying, hey, this is healthy. We want to see this kind of transition from this to that. Are there any other tips or tricks or strategies that you've seen? Because asking for a friend, Harvey, where it is like, well, if they quote unquote convert to this, they're going to leave portfolio A and move to portfolio B. Like I'm thinking, shared credit, like how do we, what does that look like? But I'm just curious if you have any other things you've seen where organizations do have some of those internal silos.
Well, I think the key thing is the evaluation process. So if you say to somebody, say running a direct mail portfolio, one of your metrics is that we want 5% of the people in this program to become monthly donors. We won't penalize you. Then when you have reporting back, what we try and get our clients to do is not just have them as silo, but it's like, here's direct mail core list, here's the prospecting, here's the monthly donors that came out of the mail program, and keep that in there. And then also the digital stuff related to monthly giving. So they can measure it all together as opposed to separately, because that's where people who aren't good at reading fundraising numbers make errors by trying to cancel this program.
That's great. That's great. Well, and that is especially with larger organizations where there is the middle donor portfolio and the, so on and so forth. So that's really powerful. If you're a nonprofit leader thinking seriously about the future of recurring giving, I want to take just a moment to share a resource with you. My book, The Rise of Sustainable Giving, is now available as an audiobook, narrated by me and designed for leaders who want to grow sustainable recurring revenue in today's subscription economy. This book brings together 2 decades of working with charities, deep research into the subscription economy, and practical frameworks for building recurring giving programs that last. Whether you're just getting started with monthly giving or you're looking to take an existing program to the next level, this audiobook is meant to meet you where you are on a walk, in the car, or between meetings. And even if you've already read the print edition, many leaders are finding that listening to the book helps them hear the ideas differently and spot new opportunities. You can find The Rise of Sustainable Giving audio edition wherever you listen to audiobooks. If you care about growing generosity that's sustainable for your donors, your organization, and your mission, I hope you'll give it a listen. I want to stick on these organizations that have a solid recurring base. So imagine a nonprofit leader who's got a base, whether or not it's just sort of built slowly over time, kind of through its own kind of volition, or they've built it. But this is a leader who has a base but wants to scale. What's one thing that you would tell that leader if they want to scale recurring giving?
Well, something just came to mind. There's an organization in Canada, and they also do a lot of work in the States, called Griffin. I have no financial relationship with them, whatever. Okay. And this is Griffin, Gryphon.
Okay.
They do database analyses, which are better than Blackbaud at a tenth of the cost. So what they do is take your database, analyze every metric you can think of, give you an 88-page report or so. And the core thing in there is they will do segments on your monthly donors, single gift donors from the different channels. And every time we've done one of these and shown it to the bosses at a nonprofit, said this is the long-term value of a monthly donor once acquired. And it's always in the 2,000 to 3,000 range,
Mm-hmm.
even over a decade period. And so when you present these numbers, this is your donor file. Let's try and figure out a strategy to convert another 10% of your donors to become monthly donors. And here are some of the ways we could do this. There's changing this on your platforms, doing this in your newsletter, calling them, or running this specific digital campaign. But once they see the raw numbers of the value of these, so that is the first thing that just came to mind there. Uh, there could be
Yeah.
others. Follow up
Yeah.
questions. Happy to answer them.
Yeah. Well, and it's I just think there's two different type. There's more than two, but broadly speaking, we'll just think of simply two different types of leaders. There's ones that's hey, I'm at 10,000 recurring donors, I want to go to 20,000, or I'm at 100,000 and I want to go to 200,000. Anything else? I know there's a million things, but anything else as you think about that kind of a leader that's really you know, at that place where it's more of a scale conversation than a get started conversation.
Right. Well, the core thing will be investment. So you hire the right people to help you, whether that's internally or consultants, and you take a big pot of money and say, we're going to invest this. That's why I like the Griffin stuff, because you figure, okay, what is your break even point on the value of these people? So if over a decade, every person ever acquired is worth $1,200, which they should easily be, even with decent attrition,
Mm-hmm.
and then you throw in upgrading. And you still got 40% of them still giving long into the future. Well, is it worth spending $200 to acquire a new donor, knowing that our break even point is month 19? Then it's pure profit, 95% profit after that, not to mention their great legacy
Yeah.
prospects. Um, I can't find a better argument than that to make for investing. But you do need money. You've got the people who are non-donors and the people who are donors. It's the cost to acquire a donor way cheaper than a non-donor, but you probably want to be testing both.
Yeah.
And organizations with large brand names, way easier to get non-donors than organizations nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that investment mentality, especially to your point, if you want to scale, that becomes this, Jim Collins talks about the flywheel, right? This flywheel, but you have to have what I'm hearing is you have to have the intentionality, but also candidly the sort of systems and decision making to be able to
yes,
do that
yeah,
investment.
and there's a strategy and also the system. So you just can't take money and throw it at it if you don't have the right people implement it, because you know as well as I do,
Right.
testing, you can do this or something else that costs the same but has 5 times the results. So then you could have a really successful conversion campaign. And if you don't have the back end, like people properly being thanked or the systems to renew credit cards or all these other things, then the program is not going to be nearly as successful.
Yeah. 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 So that's what I hear. What I hear you is how to, build that flywheel of investment so that you're really scaling, but also making sure that you have the back end, the experience dialed in so that you're maximizing that.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
should say just one thing about that, and the best case I know of this in recent times is around rage fundraising. So when Donald Trump got elected in 2016, he went after a lot of groups and a lot of issues, and the ACLU pumped a lot of money into campaigns to recruit monthly donors in every channel imaginable, with all sorts of the different things that he was going after. And they, in about a 3-month period, went from I think it was 85,000 monthly donors to 265,000 monthly donors
Wow.
in a tiny window, not even spending all that much. It was costing like $3 to recruit a new monthly donor. So seizing opportunities like that, and that was an extra $80 million a year. They also recruited something like another 800,000 brand new donors, some of whom will convert to monthly giving or continue giving single gifts. So organizations should keep an eye, even if you don't have a lot of
Yeah.
capital, but there are opportunities where you can actually scale really quickly.
Well, that's one of the things we've talked about, and it's a core principle of fundraising. But I think it for some reason fundraisers seem to forget it with recurring giving is timeliness and specificity.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the sort of generic monthly giving asks I see are just sort of like, "Would you give to us monthly now?" And it's like, number one, that's a taller ask than a single gift, and number two, there's no clear rationale that a donor would understand why now. So your point about, in this case, rage giving, or in your earlier example with disaster, that immediate like long term recovery kind of disaster response, I think are great examples of timeliness and actually being willing to take advantage of the moment in that. Okay, so now let's pivot and talk about leaders who are just starting out. So let's say you've got a leader that's much closer to that ground zero. What's the simplest, highest leverage starting move?
Well, I guess totally depends if you have donors or no donors.
Fair.
If you have no donors, we've started some groups that are now large groups over the years, way harder now than even a decade ago, where the initial ask, whether it's digital or mail, we're recruiting single gift donors with a monthly giving option. And incredibly, people had never heard of this organization. You get 1 or 2% instantly becoming monthly donors. Then you can go back and invite all the people. So I would say, the best thing is strategy is probably try and recruit a lot of single gift donors and work on converting them over time and always give them that option in newsletters. Talk about how great the monthly givers are, maybe profile, it's easy to give, et cetera, et cetera. So you're, especially for new organizations, you're not going to be on TV. You're not going to be doing street canvassing. You have to, whatever channel you're recruiting people in, social media or whatever, you give them a soft and good, like you said, good reason to become a monthly donor. And the good reason maybe in the thank you letter, you say to them, this is wonderful that you made this generous gift. And we are working on this program. Would you consider becoming a monthly donor? Because we need sustainable income that we could depend on. It's the backbone of our organization, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no miracle starting out small, but again, most people will only give you a single gift in North America to start. Not so much in Europe where they're, that their main ask is monthly giving. But there are reasons it hasn't taken off as much in the States as it has in Europe. But I'd say just, try and always ask for both. Although for some organizations, you can test it to see if it depresses your single gift response, in which case you may do a 2-step program.
Mm-hmm. What are, with beginners that are just building their programs, what mistakes do beginners consistently make?
I don't think we have enough time to
start the list. Yeah.
Start the list. Well, some of the things that I have another book called 11 Questions Every Donor Asks, which it works for every kind of fundraising from major gifts on down. And what I've found over the years is I believe the 3 most important things for getting any kind of gift are, does my gift make a difference? So you have to make sure that the person feels their gift, long-term gift, monthly gift, will make a difference. Second is it easy to give? So a lot of new groups, you go to the website, you plug things in, then it tosses you out. It has to be simple and easy. People are used to one click and everything's done. And if it's a complicated form where you have to ask a ton of questions, every extra question reduces the people who complete the form. So making it easy in whatever channel you're working in is key. And the third most important question, is it urgent? So in your monthly giving request, if you can give a sense of urgency, and the urgency doesn't have to be the roof is falling or people starving in the Sudan. The urgency could, in fact, be we've got a target of 750 people, and we've got a deadline of March 31st at midnight, or we've got a matching gift donor who will, for every person who makes a monthly gift or signs up as a monthly donor, they're going to give another $100 to our theater company. So there's lots of things you can employ, but if you look at make it easy to give and urgency and make sure they feel like their gift is making a difference, then that is great for every program.
Yeah. It's amazing how the simplest advice can be the
Oh, I think that's really complicated
yeah,
advice.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that's really powerful. Is it easy? Is it making a difference? And what's the sense of urgency and timeliness? So, okay, so you mentioned some of the differences in geography and culture. So you've worked across Canada, U.S., Europe. You mentioned Australia. What are the biggest differences in recurring giving culture and behavior?
Well, there's lots of different things. Way more people in Europe on a per capita basis are sustainers or give recurring gifts. That's been the primary ask forever. They kind of initiated the first door-to-door campaigns, street canvases. So they were kind of way ahead when it was easier to recruit people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one kind of core thing. A lot of the bigger charities, there's not as many charities in Europe, so it makes it easier. And a lot of the bigger charities are global brands: Oxfam, UNICEF, World Vision, MSF, Doctors Without Borders, Greenpeace. And so because they've had this other skill shares that did one for UNICEF on monthly giving with people from 32 nations. So, but most of them, big ones, would be in Europe. And they learn lots around how to recruit monthly giving and do lots of testing. They share it with their other, with the people in Belgium will share it with German. And so I think there's that cross pollination of information among bigger charities. So that's a core thing. In the States, another big difference is I think it's 73% of monthly gifts are credit card, whereas it's not the same in Europe, not even close to that. In Canada, it's still probably 60% credit cards and 40% EFT or pre-authorized checking, as we call it here, which it has many advantages for charities because credit
Yeah.
cards are compromised all the time. So those would be two of the big things. You've got also with street canvassing and door to door. I hate to say this, but people don't want to go door to door in many parts of the United States because they could get shot by somebody who doesn't want somebody coming to their door. And so whereas that's not going to happen in Europe. So there's harder to recruit some people, and there are areas where you're just not going to go into, even though they might be good areas for canvassing.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of free. But still, when I first talked at the AFP conference, and I think something like 1990 then it was called the NSFRE on monthly giving. Nobody had heard of monthly giving really, other than 1 or 2% of the organizations, and I think that's changed a lot. So most organizations have monthly giving programs, but I did a couple of tests in the States where these mystery shopper tests. You send donations to charities, or you send them a request for information. And so one of them was I sent to 100 organizations, could you send me more information about your monthly giving program? I had a post office box in the States, so they were all going to a US address. And only half the people responded, or like it was 48 out of 100 responded. There were some organizations that had monthly giving that didn't even respond, but there were only 3 personal letters out of the 48 that responded. So that's 3 out of 100 saying, as much as like handwriting my address or thank you for requesting this. Here's the information.
Which is
Most
just
of
a
them were
brochure
like
and
a
an envelope or
brochure
whatever.
and
Yeah.
an envelope.
Like,
And
who's asking for
so, given
information?
if
Yeah.
I think if people can say every person who signs up should be worth, and you'll know this if you track the numbers, 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 for our organization over time. What's it worth to acquire one of these people? And it's worth having somebody, thanks Harvey for writing about this. We'd love to have you on our monthly
Yeah.
program.
Yeah. Somebody sent us a note asking about monthly giving. That is basically a new mid-level donor. Can somebody please write a handwritten note to them? That just makes so much sense. Okay, so some of the things I'm hearing, regular giving is certainly much more the primary mode in Europe. There are not as many charities. There's more of these mega charity known brands.
Yeah.
Debit kind of heavy, check or debit heavy.
Yeah.
One of the things you didn't mention, but I think I've seen is it seems like regular giving, particularly in Europe, is usually of sort of high volume, low dollar amounts. Is that a fair generalization?
It depends. A lot of organizations are using direct response television in particular to recruit £3 and £5 a month. So Um, they're harder to upgrade, although you get a volume and, if you're watching the numbers, this is mostly a few years ago, right, especially
Mm-hmm.
doing longer form DRTV, now some shorter form. Um, Again, if you get somebody who's giving, say, $5 a month, still $60 a year, $720 over a decade, that's not bad. Your cost will be the same whether they're giving 50 generally as 5. Um, so you can make money in volume. Um, but there are some of the organizations I work with, international development agencies, where they do have a high average gift because that's what they kind of ask for either in street
Okay.
canvassing or door to door, or it's because you really believe in Greenpeace and you're going to give them $50 a month kind of thing.
Okay. So that's not necessarily a full generalizable kind of reality
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah, and this is one of these things. I've not looked at data from Europe for a couple of years, like
Mm-hmm.
really deep data. But the ones I've seen, which were great data, they tended to be from the top 20 large global brands, and they had higher average donations.
Okay. Yeah. Are there approaches that Europe uses that North America should pay more attention to?
Um, yes, more support for Ukraine, and
Specifically on the cause side. Yeah.
um, well, I think I've spoken at the International Fundraising Conference that happens in Holland every year, best conference in the world. And one of the things that I found in Europe is that there's lots of people from Africa and Asia who come to these conferences, and there's some incredibly innovative things that are happening uh, in African countries, in South America, etc. But I feel like there's not enough Americans there. I think if more Americans went to these things, they could probably learn a lot of things that would be applicable to the U.S. market. One of the reasons I love going, yeah, like teaching, but I'm picking up ideas all the time and making other global connections with people who become friends who then can share information on what's working in their countries. So there's a long list of things I think Americans could learn, but I don't have time.
Yeah, I can. Well, I'm about to ask you a question about that, but before we go there, the mutual friend of ours, Erica Wasdorp, speaks pretty highly of that international fundraising
Yeah,
conference.
that's
So
great.
I'm hearing that, and that's something I need to check out. I told her, by the way, I said, "What do they want to hear from me about? Like, I'm like behind them." So, anyways, but that's good to know. Okay, so what do Canadian organizations tend to get right compared to U.S. nonprofits?
Well, I think one of the things is that we ask more often than, gross generalization, but we definitely ask more often. We'll have on prospecting forms or when we're doing digital campaigns, a monthly giving ask. And that is not always the case in the States. There's, you know, I feel like there's more people who know a lot about monthly giving in Canada than the US, higher percentage of people give here. So we're doing a lot of testing at different times. And that kind of gives us some tips for certain organizations that work better than in the States. One of the things I found in the States is, and this may have changed a little, but I was working with a big American organization with millions of donors, and the people doing the direct mail program would not allow me to put stuff on the reply forms because, well, if we converted people over, they would earn less money, like no integrity whatsoever. But it was a big fight to have this happen. So if people are incentivized just to do more and more mail, which is kind of destroying the brand for an organization in many cases and burning out donors, um, and they don't allow you to make that offer to become a monthly donor, that hurts the organization and the whole industry. So I think that likely is still a problem with organizations in the States who are just driven to the agencies or the printers want to mail more because they make more money, but that doesn't serve the organization, um, the nonprofit. And I feel like that does not happen at all in Canada.
Oh man, you're making me think of a whole nother list of questions. We might need to just have you back on the show, but let me ask you a question related to that, and then one more as we wrap here. Um, One of the things that I've noticed is because I've grown up in fundraising and in particularly in the U.S. And one of the things that as I've gotten much more deeply down the rabbit hole that is regular, sustainable, recurring giving And that is just this recognition that so many nonprofits and so many fundraisers are just kind of living in a single gift world. So it's the sort of the air they breathe, the water they swim in. And I know, having spent 20 years in that water, um, is that a uniquely U.S. specific phenomenon where it's just like so dominantly focused on single gifts, almost at the like, not even at the expense of recurring giving, but almost like it makes recurring giving almost invisible? Is that unique
Uh,
down here?
where you are so unique in the States. Um, I have many relatives and friends in the States, so sorry for the digs. Um, I'd say the U.S. is the one big market in the world that is behind everybody else in the world around recurring giving, sustainable giving, monthly giving, whatever. And it's partly of how it's structured. It could be the population, who knows? But everybody that we work with globally has a way higher percentage of people who give monthly than in America. And the number of people who don't do monthly giving in the States who could be doing it is significant.
Well, I hope we're going to clip that, Harvey, and put it all over the internet. And I hope every US based fundraiser gets really competitive based on that comment and catches up, because I
That'd
think
be
we
good.
need to. All right. Well, last question, because you have seen really so much over the years, and you've worked with so many organizations, and you've seen these different sectors, even going back to that first trip you took and just the heart that you had fighting apartheid, right? Like going all the way back to there to today. What's giving you hope in the recurring giving space right now?
Um, well, tricky question. Um, I guess the hope is that more people will catch on. We found that with clients that we've worked with for the years, it's like every donor file increases their income every year, even with not all that much effort, relatively speaking, in conversion. So they're not, a lot of them aren't doing DRTV anymore or even face to face canvassing. But even with the donor file they have, they're able to convert more people every year and net more money because of upgrading. So I feel like it's going to be harder and harder to acquire new donors, and seems to be the case for the last couple of years in most countries. So getting the donors on your donor base and focusing on them and getting them to convert so they give you more money, and it's easy for them to give you more money when they give monthly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hopeful thing for nonprofits. And the second thing is related to that is your monthly donors are your best legacy giving prospects. So again, the value of acquiring these people is not just the monthly gifts. It's developing that strong loyalty and long term relationship where when you ask them to consider a gift in their will, you're top of mind.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, and that's we know we've talked about the long term value, and even those long term value metrics, as far as I understand, don't include legacy giving. That's what
We do, but
you do.
we've got a
Good. Oh,
calculation.
well, good. I like it. I like it. We'll have to talk. Well, Harvey, thank you for the time. I know uh, this topic has been you've been so passionate about it over the years, and I'm just grateful to be a part of the broader ecosystem, really trying to shine a light on what we're seeing today, and so appreciate you.
Thanks, Dave.
Where can folks go if they want to find out more? Grab a copy of one of your books. Where would we send people?
Well, probably our website. I'm not a fan of Amazon, I got to say,
Okay.
even though it's very convenient because you just press that one button. But I think billionaires have enough money. But our website is harveymckinnon.com.
Okay.
And we
Well,
ship. And there's our publisher, Civil Society Press. They have 4 of my books,
great.
and Penguin has one of them. So
Good. I gotta go find an out of print copy of the OG monthly giving one. I did not get that in my research. So
we are selling the PDF copy on our
oh,
website.
good.
So that's
I'll have to get
the
it there.
data in it is
Perfect.
great. The numbers, full of numbers, you'll like.
I love it. Well, I do like a good number. So, thank you, Harvey. Appreciate you, and just thanks for investing in the sector.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sustainable Giving Podcast. I hope you found the information helpful and that you're able to walk away with insights that you can use to start building a steady stream of recurring revenue for your organization. For even more resources to help you build a thriving recurring giving program, go online to sustainablegiving.org. That's sustainablegiving.org. And lastly, if a leader comes to mind that you think would benefit from this episode, would you do me a favor? Would you share this episode with them? Just that little act could be the difference they need to start growing sustainable recurring giving for their own organization. Until next time, thanks for joining us.